gave the announcement was to get their seats. No, not, I didn't introduce you. Just to get their attention. Just 1 minute.
Okay, good.
And panelists are back there. You want to get them out? Yeah. Panelists, come on out here. Are you going to introduce them individually?
No, Wells is going to do that.
Okay. Okay.
Introduce
We're
Wells.
getting ready for Tracy to introduce you guys. Do you have a seating order?
I'll go to the first seat.
Okay. And did Paul talk to you guys about where you're sitting?
No.
What order to sit in?
No.
Okay. All right.
Put Brandon like second. Because we're so big, we're gonna take them all in a minute.
Okay. You can figure that out yourself.
Okay.
You're the man. We're gonna have Tracy go up first, and she'll bring you on. All right. All right, Tracy. You ready? Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Tracy Smith.
Hey! Woo! Yay! All right. How's the day going so far? You guys sound like you're on a carb low. Wait, do it again. How's the day going so far? All right. We have this great group of panelists. And how many of you have wanted to work and live abroad? Oh, look. Oh, there you go. You're in the right place. All right. So this panel discussion is all about that. These guys have worked everywhere. They've lived everywhere. They're going to give you all sorts of great advice as to how they did it, how they made that transition into another culture. And I think you're going to learn a lot. So if you have questions afterwards, you're going to have a chance to ask some questions. And please do ask them. This is a really fun group. So I think you'll learn a great deal from them. So listen intensely. Don't get up unless you have to. And show them some love. Wells Davis is going to be our moderator today. He's oh, my God. We're so lucky to have him today. I mean, I don't know if you know who Wells is. Look at Wells. And thank him for flying in from Chicago. He works with Leo Burnett. He's a vice president, brand marketing and everything.
Head of strategy.
Head of strategy, and I'm just going to give you all sorts of titles. I don't know, is Mark Tutzel,
I can
you're
explain
like
who I am.
Okay, I'm going to let him do it. Everybody, please, Wells.
Thank
Give it
you.
up for Wells Davis.
Hi, I'm Wells Davis. I'm EVP, Head of Strategy at Leo Burnett in Chicago. I'm here to head up this, I guess, panel discussion about global being creative currency. I think I'm qualified because I'm a Jamaican raised in Toronto who moved to Chicago and works on global accounts. So I'm going to be the boss for 45 minutes, and I'm going to introduce my panel. They can come up. Once they're all up there, they can talk about who they are. So I've got Chocolate from Leo Burnett, Giancarlo Lanfranco of Havas, and Matthew Bull, the founder of the Bull White House.
What up, y'all?
Hi, guys.
What up? Don't let me leave my wallet here, okay?
So I'm just going to ask you guys to give a couple sentences about each other, and then we'll get right into it. So I'll start with you, Matthew.
Okay, I'm a creative person previously, and now all I do is I write emails. I started an agency in South Africa, grew it into being one of the 3 biggest in South Africa, and also one of the top 50 creatively in the world. Then I ran Low in London, the 2nd biggest agency in London. And then I took over as the chief creative officer of Low Worldwide, which in America was Deutsch for a bit, and we're offices in about 78 countries around the world. And I did that until 2011. Then I sold my agency. That's my wallet is so big, and and I decided to blow all my money and start an agency in New York, which I've had for 3 years. We're 20-odd people. We have Corona, Unilever, and some other interesting business.
Dope.
Dope.
You're the man. That's impressive. That's impressive. Super impressive. My name is Brandon Roshan. I am the Senior Vice President, Global Creative Director of Samsung Mobile at Leo Burnett.
I think we're pitching on that business.
Good luck. Good, my man.
I'm Giancarlo Lanfranco. I'm creative director at Avas Worldwide here in New York, and I'm originally from Peru. So this is sort of like my fourth stop in my world tour. I started in Peru. I moved to Singapore to work for Saatchi, then to Amsterdam, where I stayed like 5 years working for Wyden and Kennedy, and then Paris to work for Fred and Farid, and now here in New York. So it's sort of like my last stop in my objective of doing what Matthew is doing right now, probably opening my agency at some point.
Awesome.
Everybody. Okay, so we're just going to get right into it. So as we all know, we've been watching the world become a smaller and smaller, large global community, and we see a lot of agencies with offices all around the world to service the global needs of some of their clients, as well as some of the regional needs. And it's really become, creativity has really become a global currency. And I think that's good because our business should really be a meritocracy based on creativity. So all of these panelists, including myself, have either worked or lived abroad and worked on big global accounts. And they're just going to kind of give you some insight on why it's a great time to consider going global. So I'm just going to ask the question, and whoever wants to answer it first. And if you're not answering, I'll just pick on you. So first question is, when did you have your first opportunity to work in another country, and where was it?
Let's go from that side.
All right,
Okay, yeah. Well, I literally was like 10 years ago, I was in Peru. I was actually an intern, sort of junior creative at Saatchi and Saatchi in Peru. At that time, Peru was not really like the best place to work in advertising, you know. There was a lot of crises, and creatively speaking, it was not like the best spot. But luckily, my partner and I got really lucky, and we won some awards in Cannes, so we got the chance to move to Singapore. That was like completely opposite from Peru, right? Like, Peru's like a big country, sort of messy, you know, like with a lot of, interesting stuff going on. While you go to Singapore, that is completely the opposite. It's like super clean, perfect. There was a guy talking about Singapore just before. It's like exactly how he described it. You know, you cannot even like buy gum there because you're gonna get dirty, the city. So, I mean, it was a really interesting move to go from something completely opposite from the other. So, I mean, I think when you have an opportunity, you should definitely take it and not really judge that much, especially if it's the first one and you're young. I mean, I was 21 years old and now I'm 31, so like 10 years ago. So yeah, just go for it, I think.
Rocking it, man. Yeah. Doing the damn thing.
What about you, Brandon?
Me. What was the question again? No.
Why are we here?
First opportunity to work in another country.
First opportunity I had to work in another country.
And where?
And where? The first opportunity I had to work in another country was I graduated from Creative Circus. All right, that's what I'm talking about. And, and I got a job offer to go to Paris. I met this guy named Eric Rivrogan, who I had no fucking clue who he was, which I was ashamed of. Oh, no swearing, my bad. No freaking clue who he was. And I feel bad because I should have known who he was, because at the time, Eric Rivrogan was the #1 creative director in the freaking world, probably the baddest ass art director.
Learned everything you knew from South
Africa. Like this man right here, you know, it was one of the greats, and it was really weird. You know, I'll tell you the story a little later, and he saw something, and he had never seen my book, and he was like, I love your fucking passion. Come work for me in Paris. So I packed up the bags and I moved to Paris.
What about you, Matthew?
Don't you love it? So I'll answer the question slightly differently if I could. I mean, I think the first thing that I love about, you know, our business is all about experiencing new things and opening our minds. It was particularly relevant for me because I grew up in apartheid South Africa. And apartheid South Africa, as you will all know, is a place where if you were white, then you knew everything. And if you were black, you were suppressed, et cetera, et cetera. So the greatest, almost a mind-blowing experience I ever had was when I first got into advertising. Apartheid was coming to an end, and I'd done about 4 years in advertising, and all of a sudden, the clients walked in and said, okay, we've now got to market to the whole of South Africa, and not just a small, elite white group. It was the most incredible experience, going out there, walking into townships for the first time in my life, seeing the way black people lived was unbelievable. It was an equal mixture of absolute sadness and horror and absolute euphoria. So that was my first venture into a completely new market. And then I had, my next, actually leaving the shores of South Africa was when I went to England as the CEO of Loan London. And you could not find two more different experiences, from the vibrancy and the energy of South Africa to this austere, cynical, I mean, I was born in England, by the way, so I can criticize English people, but cynical outlook on life, but still inherently, and this is the message, you got to find the good wherever you go, because let me tell you, if you look for the good, you find such great things, which I did in South Africa and I did in England as well.
Yeah. So I find it interesting, the first place you worked abroad was in your same country when it actually became somewhat united country, still not quite there yet. What did you learn from, and I'm going to ask this on a broader question too, but what did you learn from working or marketing or advertising to the Black community? What was different? Like, did you guys completely ignore them before and then?
Totally ignored them.
So they weren't even considered consumers at all?
Not at all. So totally ignored them, considered no purchasing power, all the money would go, so in other words, there were certain brands that would obviously the staple stuff that you get, but certainly in the agencies I worked, they were totally and utterly ignored. And what you discovered probably pretty early on, which I know is a theme of the conversation, is that people by and large pretty much have the same values around the world that you can tap into, but you must also always remember that they express them differently. So the way a Brazilian expresses love is different to the way somebody in Paris expresses love. And these are just things that you have to work out as you go.
So what was some of the things you learned when you, Giancarlo, when you moved to, was it Singapore, different about the consumer than when you were working in?
I mean, it's like Peru, let's say it was sort of a reduced market, and there's a lot of like promotional stuff going on, at that early stage. And when you move to Singapore was much more like a visual city, like everything was like really more like onto the craft. So I think that, if you're talking from a creative side, like the skill of craft was like really well developed in Singapore, like in Peru everything was much more promotional, while in Singapore everything was much more beautiful. And the interesting thing of Singapore is you could create like work just not for Singapore, but it was sort of ahead for the region. So, there's definitely a lot of contrast, but if you're in the idea sort of business, and the hardest thing that you have to do at the end is like the best ideas are always simple and they can get it through in every country in the world. So, you always have to try to struggle to get that like good idea that is simple and you can get it in Singapore, in Peru, in China. I think that's all what we try to do now, and I think I'm still struggling to try to make these simple ideas.
It's just hard to get it through Millwood Brown, that's all.
Exactly. That's the same everywhere. What about you, Brandon? The difference between the American consumer and then the Parisian consumer, what did you learn?
It's kind of, I think my man said, we learned from the whole idea that there are universal truths about everyone. Everyone has pretty much the same moral compass and moral values. And coming from Eric Vervogen, something he always taught us, we probably learned from Tony Granger, was he said to talk about ride the knife's edge of emotion. So he's like, everybody loves, everybody has fear, everybody knows envy, people know lust. So if you talk about those things for our brands and you fucking tap into that one emotion and you ride it, like literally, and we rode it hard.
We did.
We rode it really hard, and we got famous off of it. But I think he was like, something that we need to know about ourselves is everyone talks about how different we are, when really, when you travel and you work abroad, you realize how similar we are.
Yep.
Okay. So what are some of the benefits you've learned about working abroad? And I'll start back with you, Brandon.
Benefits. Currency. It's totally currency. You write as a currency, you get paid. No? Actually, the benefit of going to Paris is I went to Paris broke. I left Paris broke.
You went and left broke?
I went and left broke. But I think what it taught me was I got to meet people like these guys right here, and saw that creativity is something that it's innate for a lot of people. Like, there's a difference between being good at it and loving it. And when I went to Europe, the craft was sick. Like, I had Eric one time sit me down and we were doing a brief for Harry's Bread, right? And we're sitting there, and I'm showing him the idea. I'm like, yeah. So this is what we're gonna do, and it's gonna be like this, and the art direction is like this. And he goes, "Are you an art director? Or are you a planner?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" He was like, "You came in here with an idea, and all you talked about was the idea, and you never talked about the art direction." He was like, "You're an artist. Your job is to bring your art to life through branding. So you should talk about different angles of cameras and how to add drama into a picture, and you should know what the lighting is going to be like, and you should know the character in this print ad." And I was like, "Whoa, playa." We're just talking about print. And he was like, "If you think that way, you will never be an art director." So what it realizes and in Paris, you have interns who are winning Grand Prix. You got people who have been working, have been interns for 7, 10 years, have 10, 15 lines and are still interns. Because all it is in France was the craft. We didn't care about titles. We didn't care about money. All we cared about was how dope is my ad going to be on TV, in print, in digital. I literally, like Eric would always be like, "Open up a damn book, like any magazine." And he would say, "Put your ad in that magazine. And if your ad is not the best looking ad in that magazine, go back and do it again." Because literally you want people to flip through a damn magazine and stop at your stuff and be like, "Damn," and rip it out and hang it on the wall for every other art director to be like, "My art direction needs to be that good." And that's what I think was a huge benefit of working with talented artists, because what I realized is Paris didn't come up with the American swag of like, "Oh, we're the convenience of everything." America, you can be cool with words. You can say funny, punny things. Tap into insights that are really only cool locally. When you work overseas, it's all about the visual language and how beautiful that visual language is.
What about you, Giancarlo?
I mean, I also worked in Paris, so I can sort of relate to what he's saying. But I think like what I sort of learned of this sort of moving to different places, and I guess it's like the craft, but something that you sort of realize is how important is the idea sometimes.
Yes.
And example for us, me and my partner, we're like not native English speakers, right? So we're like in Singapore where everyone speaks English, or in Amsterdam where everyone speaks English, or in Paris where everyone speaks French. Yep. That's even more difficult, right? Or right now here, right? So you realize that your value can come from the idea actually, and that's a cool thing that advertising has, that you can actually have a passport just because you have good ideas, It's like, so on the way you can, of course, improve your craft in writing or art direction and stuff, but it's one of the few careers that sort of like value the idea. So, I mean, that's like the power that we sort of have. I mean, everyone here.
For sure.
So what about you, Matthew, coming to America? What are some of the benefits you learned to come over here?
America, God. Well, I mean, on a broader level, to me, first of all, what you realize, and I spent a lot of time traveling around to many and working in many different countries, is you really understand the effect of culture. I mean, we all understand this from the perspective of our own small microcosms, our families or our businesses. But actually, when you get out to different cities, you see that each city has a culture, okay? It has an all-pervasive culture. So in Paris, it has a very artistic, outwardly elegant thing, and a lot of the work is reflected by that. You'll find it in a lot of countries and a lot of cities. What's wonderful about advertising, it actually reflects the state of society at the time. However, my thing to all creative people, or all people that love this business, is that you have this overarching culture. True greatness, and the thing that keeps propelling the culture forward, is for people to be different, so just New York's a great example. If you're worried about why on earth we don't have more creative agencies in New York, yet we walk around the streets and it feels like the most creative city in the world, well, it's very simple, because this is money town. Okay, this town is run by money, it's run by rules, and it's run by bureaucracy, and it really does sometimes weigh very heavily on the creative folk here. So what you have to do is, you have to put that all aside, get down on the streets, and actually bring that creativity up, and that's, I think, true of most countries.
Okay. So I know it can't all be good working abroad. What are some of the negatives of working abroad?
Oh, good Lord. Can we talk about the negatives of working in America and still working abroad? No.
No, not yet. So Brandon, what are some of the negatives of working?
Negatives, I didn't know the language. Like, I moved to Paris and it was like, want. I was like, excuse me? Ketchup? So that was a huge, and then like the Parisian customer service sucks. Don't try to get your cable turned on. Because they ain't coming, they ain't coming.
Or anything.
Or anything, totally. But you know, I think I had a great experience. I mean, there really wasn't, like some of the negative things besides the language, because you'll get over the language really, really quick, because you got to, you know, and I think the hardest part was there was a lot of things that I heard was like, oh, you're too American, you know? And I was like, what does that mean, being too American? And like I said, I had a great mentor, and he was like, I brought you here to bring that African-American swag to Paris. And that's literally what he said. He told me, he said, if you come to Paris and you change, I will fucking fire you. He was like, you gotta be you. And it was hard, because like the Parisians have this air about themselves that they think they're better than everyone else. And like when I walked in there, everyone in our damn agency had like 10 lions, and I was this little poor, you know, kid coming out of school, and I didn't have that. I didn't even know what it was about. And it was hard, because you had to like, you know, show your muscle really quick. You had to show like these simple ideas. It would always be like, simple idea executed perfectly. Simple idea executed perfectly. And you're like, damn, how do I get to a simple idea? You know? So I think that was a hard one, and trying to figure out that community, you know, because the one thing you do, luckily I have a partner that I've had for the past 14 years, Cream. Yeah, that's my boy. And we moved together. And so we had each other, and there were times when we were like, what the fuck? These French people are gonna kick my butt. Like you'd walk into a meeting, a client meeting, like we went to a client meeting for Nissan one time, and we presented this work, and it was great, and it was cool, and everyone was laughing, and it was great and awesome, and everyone's like, oh, that idea's the best, the best, the best. And then the CMO looks and is like, I'm 99% sold on this idea. And I was like, okay, there's gonna be a but. He goes, but I feel like only America can do it right. And you're like, I'm trying. Everything was French. Everything was, and at that time, like I said, I didn't work on just Parisian stuff. I worked a lot on European stuff. So it was, you know, I had to run in Germany and Italy and Greece and Spain and Denmark and Sweden. And it's like, well, damn. I'm trying to figure out what is.
Sounds like an excuse for a lack of courage.
Absolutely. It was absolutely the lack. So that was when it got hard. But it was easy, because every single time my partner and I never backed down. We never stopped giving those kind of ideas. Even though we didn't win, we did win. Because next time we came back, they knew what to expect, and they knew like, okay, it's gonna be crazy.
You don't strike me as a back down kind of guy.
No, you're right. No, I don't. So I think that was the hardest part. That was, but it gave me courage. It gave me
Some of the negatives you've experienced, man?
Look, I think that the thing that happens is, you know, if you put three people together of a different language and you ask them to communicate with each other, what ends up happening is they end up going yes, no, and it becomes vanilla. And I think the same thing happens in our business, that if you're doing a campaign that goes out globally and has to go to multiple markets, people go to the lowest common denominator, they go for the safe thing, you know, don't tread on everything. And I think that, and what I always say to my clients and the guys that I work with is, that's just an excuse for ignorance. Yeah. Okay, what you really need to do is you need to really look at, we did a campaign for HSBC globally around the world, the world's local bank, and it was never underestimate the importance of local thinking. And what was great about that is we had to learn about what different things meant in different cultures, and then embrace those things and not run away from them. So for example, you may not know this, we did one commercial for HSBC where if you put your finger through like this, in most cultures in Europe, it's fuck off. Am I allowed to say off?
Yeah.
Thank God I'm not cursing.
Whereas in Brazil, this is good luck.
Oh.
So you can imagine, you know, a guy from Brazil going around the world going, how are you doing? Well, great. You know. So I think the point is there's a lot of vanilla, but it's really an excuse, once again, for a lack of ambition and lack of hard work. And it's, once again, like in everything, you just got to rail against that sort of thing.
What did you like the least, Jared?
I think that, once you leave your house, like a place that you consider your house, it's sort of like you have to adapt to hang out with different people. You know, you don't have your friends, you don't have your family, you don't have your colleagues. So I think that's something that you might struggle a bit, but sort of once you go through it, for me, like the first year I was out of Peru in Singapore, it was like crazy, because it's like, oh my God, I don't have my father, mother, friends. Like, if I get sick, where is my doctor? You know, you start like getting all these things. But then after you realize that you start making like sort of a living everywhere. So at some point, like, the barriers are much shorter, right? So you can, like, live in Singapore and feel good, and live in Amsterdam and make new friends. And I mean, I came here thinking, like, oh, I won't know anyone. And actually, everyone that is in advertising, like, works here, sort of. So it's like, I found, like, really good colleagues that used to live with me, like, in Amsterdam, or used to work with me in Singapore or in Paris. So it's like, oh, yeah, man. So, I mean, at the beginning it's hard, but then once you're into it, you sort of, like, realize that, yeah, it's sort of okay.
Well, we were actually speaking earlier, and this is something, you know, I've had an agency here now for 3 years, and I think this is true of wherever you go. It's impossible for anyone to truly explain to you how difficult it is to adapt to a new city, and particularly this town. Because they write songs about it, as you all know, but no one knows how tough it is to make it in this town until you do it. And that is true of any place you go to. And I got very good advice when I first went to London, was if you can't change something, change your attitude towards it. And that's advice I think
Come
that
on,
would stand you.
that's beautiful.
I thought so.
That is absolutely.
It wasn't even a shrink.
That was, you got that for free? You got that
A barman.
I found moving from Canada, and it's really, Toronto is really the market in Canada, because we all know each other, we were a lot more competitive and we wanted to all be more famous than the other guy. But when I moved to a big market like America, I don't find the intensely competitive nature there. I find it's such a big market and people just want to, I don't say Americans in general, but being in a small fish in a big pond, it's a lot harder to keep that competitive fire up because people aren't, you know, we're not all crabs in a bucket. It's a whole big sea out there. So
Just look in the mirror, man. That's the guy you got to compete with.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, that's true. That's what it'll come down to. You guys talked about the transition of working in a different country. I'm going to ask about getting approval from clients. How different has it been in different markets compared to your home market? Brandon? Harder, easier?
hard. Like literally, I mean, I work with Koreans every day, all day. And Samsung is the, number one mobile device. Ikeans as well too. And it's hard, you know, I mean, they make $94 billion just on the devices that we sell. And where you've got loss in translation sometimes happens, and you have, like right now, you know, China is a huge market for the world, and everyone's focusing on China because it is about to have the spending power that is 10 times greater than America will ever be, because now China finally has gotten a middle class. And so people are starting to buy more things. And so every client is like, we want to focus on China. And at the end of the day, America builds brands. That's every top, you say the top 5 brands on, what is it, Integer, what is the brand scale, right? Yes. You have Apple, Google, Yahoo, Coke, McDonald's, and you're like, okay, so Samsung's trying to get there. But then you're like, how do I get it like, to a Chinese perspective? I ain't never been to China. I love me some Chinese food, you know? And so you're constantly just soaking it all in. And so those clients will sit there and say, hey, you know, I have a meeting, and there'll be the CMO or the managing director from China, and there'll be the managing director from Singapore, the managing director from South Africa, the managing director from Nigeria, the managing director from Germany, the managing director from Brazil. And you're like, okay, I got to get all these people to say yes before I ever produce anything. And so you have the Korean perspective on it before we take it to the global perspective. And then all of a sudden the global perspective has their own ideas on it. And then you have the culture of Korea. So Korean culture and how they do business is very much a part of my day-to-day business. So you have, in Korea, they have this thing called saving face. So in Korea, a boss can never be wrong, no matter what. So they'll say something, and it'll be.
I think I've got a Korean agency. You think you got one?
So they'll, you know, a client will say, hey, we're going to do it this way. And you're like, okay, we'll figure it out. We'll work it out. Cool, this is what we're going to go. This is what we're going to do. You'll go and present it to the rest of the regions, and the regions will react to it, and they'll react unfavorably to it. And then the Koreans are like, so Brandon, yeah, what's the problem? What'd you do wrong? And you're like, wait a minute. I was just trying to help you out. So you got to take that. You got to save face, but still push the creativity and make sure that it's right and make sure that everyone's going to be happy. We're going to do something that is cool, because at the end of the day, I'm a creative, and I want my work to be seen, and I want it to be loved, and I want it to be shared. So that's one aspect. Then you have another aspect of Korean culture is the truth of what is true right now. It's called situational truths. What's true right now may not be true 10 minutes from now. So a client makes decisions off of situational truths. Whether like for a phone can change from a matter of a 2-hour meeting. And they'll be like, we're gonna do this on our phone and it's all great, it's all cool, this is what we're doing. And then all of a sudden you're walking out the meeting, you figured it out. Nope, we've got rid of that feature, we're adding this new feature. Or they'll say, okay, we're focused on digital. This whole campaign is gonna be digital. We're not doing TV, we're not doing print. We're taking it to the new level. And you're like, yeah, baby. All of a sudden you get back on a plane, fly 19 hours home, you sit down, there's an email, blue. We need a TV spot for that. Like, well, I thought we were digital. So you got to get used to that, you know what I mean? And that's just a part of lowering a culture of what you're doing. So like the French culture was very much on how premium stuff was, you know, how sensitive and how sensual things are. So when we sold a car in France, you know, because the client was French, even though we were selling it all over Europe, they wanted a sexiness to it. It had to have some kind of swag that was sexy. You got to, what do I know? I remember I was working on Louis Vuitton, and I was brand new at Ogilvy, Paris, and this French dude comes to me, we're getting ready to go to client, and he looks at me, and he goes, American, what do you know about French luxury? I said, baby, I'm about to show you. I'm about to show you. We make this hot. And you gotta have that, because at the same time, you have those cultural differences, and you still have to bring yourself to that culture. You know, Paris wanted a part of Brandon Roshan. And they didn't change Brandon Roshan, but Brandon Roshan also had to become who was Brandon Roshan in Paris and totally just love that culture and love what they were doing, man, and how they were doing it, because French hip hop was something that was big, and I would get into that. I was like, how am I gonna bring this French hip hop? At the end of the day, I was the only black. I'm just black, period. You think America got problems? You think America got problems?
Well, it has, but, yeah, okay, good point.
What about you, John? What did you bring from your home, Peru, to help you sell work over there?
On my particular case, because I'm Peruvian, it's sort of like, if you see, when we just, let's say, moved to Singapore or we went to Amsterdam, or every new agency we were, it was like, oh, let's see what these Peruvian guys can do, you know? It's always this sometimes it can work against you, but sometimes it's actually an opportunity. So on a way, it sort of helped us to represent Peru somehow, because there were not many Peruvians working somewhere else, no? So basically in South America, no? But not like in Amsterdam or Paris or New York. So sort of helped us somehow with when we presented ideas and actually when we sold them too, because suddenly at some point, you know, you start talking to the client or even to your ECD, and it's like you start talking about an idea, and then suddenly everything turns into how Peru is. You know, it's sort of like a cool thing. Oh, I was in Peru last time. It was really nice. I went to Machu Picchu. You know, I remember we were selling this campaign for Mini, and it was the German client, BMW, and they were like, oh yeah, I was in, and then suddenly the conversation started focusing on Peru, and it was like the idea passed through pretty easily, you know? So, coming from an exotic place sometimes bring a benefit, you know, if you use it wisely, I think.
Sure.
So I think that's sort of it.
And you have a unique experience come from South Africa. Did you ever use any of that to help you sell when you're in other countries?
It was always my looks. I think
So
what was
pretty.
gorgeous. Do you not read my thing about being an underwear model? Anyway, I think a couple of things. First of all, South Africa, I had a lot of photographs of my clients in compromising positions, which was handy because I grew up with a lot of them. But there was a great energy about South Africa, because remember, we were coming out of apartheid. We had so much hope. Everyone was adventurous. We were exploring and feeling and seeing things and being welcomed into the world like I don't think any culture or country has been, certainly in my lifetime.
Sure.
Which meant that people were brave. My God, we just conquered a monster. Yeah. Weren't we going to be brave enough to do a little ad on the side? Right. And that was what was absolutely wonderful about it. England was great, very, very sophisticated advertising market, both from a point of view of the consumers and the clients, which meant you could really get wonderful work through. Around the rest of the world, what I found, and certainly America really suffers from it significantly, is, you know, this is the democratic capital of the world. and I don't mean that from a political party point of view, but just from a philosophy. Now, democracy is a very misunderstood thing. Democracy is a person leads, but the leader listens to everybody else and then makes a decision. Now, when it comes to clients and companies, that's not how democracy tends to work. What they tend to do is they tend to have 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 people in a room looking at your work, making the most inane comments. Everybody goes to the lowest common denominator again, and you end up with schlock coming out of it. That's the greatest problem that we've got, and that's what I realize. So once again, what you have to do is you have to find someone within the realm of your clients that you believe has the power to influence every single person. And that's the relationship you build. That's the thing that you nurture. And if you do that, you'll get great work through, but it's not a cakewalk at all. And that's the world, not just America.
I mean, I think that's a good point. I know, like you say, this is a democratic country, and hopefully the world should be democratic, but democracy seldom works in picking good ideas. You need people with vision and leaders who have the courage to do something good or something different or something brave. And democracy works horribly in the boardroom, picking ads for sure.
Sure does.
So I think this will be the last question. So we see the rise in digital advertising and social media really expanding throughout the whole world. How do you feel that's going to impact on the need for big global campaigns, or regional campaigns will just take over? Do you feel it plays into that in any way?
I don't think anything's changed. I think what's changed is that it's just easier to get your message out there than ever before. It's probably, if you do a great piece of work, cheaper than ever before. I mean, we're busy working on our new Corona campaign now, which is a global campaign, excluding America. And, the basic thing is you've got to do something really smart, and you've just got to hope that it goes viral. So I don't think that fundamentally it's changed at all. I do think, though, that what it will be is a lesson for all of us, because the world that we're in advertising now at the moment, I consider it to be insane. We're doing the same thing over and over again. Television advertising in the US in particular is an absolute waste of money for our clients because they just don't see it. So we've just got to try and do incredibly different things. But, the biggest media channel is the one person now. That's really the most influential media channel. And the great thing about global is that you can have ideas that your clients embrace that kind of philosophy. We've got to do something that talks to one person, and that one person spreads it out. So I think it's a really exciting time if you can do global work.
So TV is obviously, I feel, becoming less and less relevant, but what about video and its role globally too?
Video's huge, film's huge, massive, come on. I mean, for all of us, that's what we love. We love film.
Of course. No one likes to admit it, but that's what we love the most.
Love it.
What about you, Brandon? What do you feel with the impact of social media and digital on global campaigns?
Yeah, I think it's I'm going to say something that probably is crazy, but I believe it has made regional even more important than global. Yeah. Because like my man just said, you are the #1 network. You decide what you want to watch, when you want to watch, and how you want to watch it. And I'm a big entertainment, branded entertainment kind of guy, and I'll tell my team all the time, we have to stop interrupting your viewing pleasure. We have to become your viewing pleasure.
Yep.
And what's cool now is social media is so targeted, and there's so much data. We can figure out exactly what you want to do and how you want to do it and what you want to watch and how you want to watch it. So therefore, we have to get even more localized. So localized is not just your country. Localized goes to your community. It goes to your crew. And I think globally, we need to start thinking that way. Yep. So instead of going out, we need to start going in. That's my personal philosophy.
It's certainly saying it's an interesting perspective, definitely.
I'm just crazy,
So what do you feel, Giancarlo?
I think on the other side, with social media now, you have to be a bit more responsible with what you do. With the creativity and with the actual creative product you do. Because as you guys say, it can go through all the world, and if you do something wrong, everyone will sort of see it. So it's a bit more, it's everywhere. So you have to be a bit more responsible with the ads you do, and personally, I had a friend that actually he did a campaign, and it went really wrong on social media, and they had to take it out of that. So it went like if this happened like 10 years ago, he'll probably be okay, right? But because of social media, they had like issues with the client and everything, So, I mean, it's good to be like now, today, like a bit more responsible with the content you place there, Like, so, I mean, it's about that, I think.
All right, I think we got to wrap up. I see people lurking over there.
I know, Tracy.
So if we,
there are questions, we can ask no questions.
so I just want to wrap up by saying that, okay, I'll take the question first. Okay.
Are you going to sing? Woo! It's a duet. Ladies first.
Start.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Ladies first, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Dominique Curtis.
What up, Dominique?
I'm a copywriter, and I actually spent some time studying in South Africa prior to going to portfolio school. So I have a really strong affinity for
Awesome.
Glad you survived.
My question here today is, how do you go about landing a position overseas? Because I'm in the process of trying to do that. Like I know someone said, come to Paris. I mean, it'd be nice if someone said that, but what can you do? Do you have to move there? Are there sites in South Africa where there are job postings? Just what do you suggest?
Well, I suggest what you do is you identify, first of all, who you want to work for, okay, and where you want to work. And then, like everything in life, you go after that person. You send them work, you send them ideas. Certainly, that's what happens with us. We get loads and loads of people. I'm exaggerating to try and make us seem bigger than we really are. We get one person a year wanting to come and work overseas. And that's the only way to do it, honestly. I mean, it's really seduction. I mean, you are all in the business of seduction, and just personalize it a little bit more.
And I would say, like, set yourself up for the opportunity. Like how I got to Paris was I snuck into a party and got kicked out. And the guy we got kicked, because we walked in, it was the Creativity Magazine's 20th anniversary. And my partner and I walked in with waitering outfits, and we picked the wrong outfit. And so clearly they're like, y'all ain't supposed to be here. And we got like drug out by like our faces. Yeah. And there happened to be a creative director who was at Shy Day in New York at the time, and it was like, I got two friends in Paris. And we went to a party and we just started talking, and the passion just came out, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, I'm an art director. And he looked at me and he said, I fucking love your passion. Come work with me. So you have to yes, you have to follow these guys, but make sure you're constantly putting yourself in the right opportunities around these people. Like, we all kick it. We love to party, we love to hang out where we hang out.
I used to, not anymore.
And just be yourself. Don't talk to me about work. Don't talk to me, let me see your portfolio. Just be cool, because I want to work with cool people.
Yeah, I think also the idea of trying, like, when you're in the right moment. I remember for us, we were taking flights from Lima to Singapore. The only way to go there is like a 13-hour flight to Amsterdam and a 13-hour flight to Singapore. So it was like 26 hours. So we were like flying constantly through Amsterdam. We didn't know we'll work there after, but we're like, oh, there's a Widen office in Amsterdam, right? And it's like, so we literally went and we, pressed the doorbell, and it was like, hey, I mean, like, can we see the recruiter? We want to show our work. So I remember it was Keith White, the recruiter there. He's like, yeah, man, like he liked some stuff. So he was like, okay, cool. And then like a year after, we got like an email from Keith White. He's like, hey guys, do you want to come to Amsterdam and meet the CDs and everything? And we're like, oh, cool, It was like, so you always have to try to find the opportunity on the right moment, right? If you don't go after it, it will not come, So, I mean, then we stayed there like 5 years, so it's like, I don't know.
I will point out that actually most people want to come to America and not leave it, but anyway, good. But you're original at least.
You are, good, awesome, awesome.
I just want to add something. It's less to do with immigration and all that other stuff. It's about how bad you want to get there and where you want to go.
Don't worry about all the
other stuff will work itself out.
You'll get there, totally.
Okay, thank you.
You have a question?
My name is Marshall Roach. I'm a graphic designer. I actually had the same question she had, but to your point about finding out where you want to be and then taking that opportunity, where do you find that golden moment? Like, what's the point where you're like, I'm good, and then I've gone and taken it too far, and now I'm just bugging somebody to the point that I might have closed the door on an opportunity? Like, where do you know how far to push it before you stop?
Have you ever tried to chat a girl in a bar?
Come on, man. Tell it like it is. Keep it going on.
Absolutely no different.
There's no different.
That's the best advice I can give you.
No different. Like I said,
You'll strike out a lot
you
too.
will.
So.
And you will strike out.
And to add that, I think something that we're sort of missing is like you have to have good ideas. Like if you're an art director,
sure.
you have to have like if you're great crafting. If you're a copywriter, you have to write well. So I mean, like you have to like work on your own book by yourself. You know, like sometimes there's no opportunities on the agency you are, so you have to make them. You know, because at the end.
But I also want to say to that, like I said, like Eric was like, your book didn't get you to Paris, but it didn't keep you from Paris.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be a rock star.
You don't.
You don't have to be. All I have to see is you're passionate. Because right now I don't expect you to know a lot about advertising. I just expect you to be passionate.
But a very key thing, and once again, using my analogy of the girl in the bar, do not be desperate. There is nothing more unattractive than a desperate man, with the possible exception of a desperate woman. Okay, never forget that. Sorry, ladies.
Sorry, cool.
I'm not with these guys.
That's great.
Last question.
I'm Sophia. We basically all have the same question. Like,
Well, then sing a song.
Back off of something that she said. Just a bit of background. I studied. I'm from a product design background. I studied abroad in Switzerland, so I totally understand the like European the culture of like craft being like killer. Here I had like a more process-based education, so when I got over there, it was just like, wow, I'm terrible at everything. Like my 5-year plan is to be living and working in Europe.
Okay.
Period. It will happen.
All right.
I've been preparing for this my entire life. I visited all these cities. I took that opportunity to do that cheaply when I was already over there. I speak 3 languages. This is going to happen. I will be working in Europe in 5 years. So my question is, because you had talked about kind of like it's all about seduction and kind of making yourself appealing to a particular company and what they want, and then we also talked about the cultural differences about how the mindset of the people working in a company are. So my question is what kind of things make yourself attractive to those types of people, if that makes sense? Like what is it about like the culture in there that would okay, let me.
No, I'll tell you what.
We can.
we got it.
I got it.
We got it. We're all. To me, it's a very simple thing.
Yeah.
Just bring them something they haven't got. Be original. Obviously, you've got to display expertise in what you do, but bring them something they haven't got. We want courage. We want bravery. We want people. We're all, if we're in this business, I can promise you we're in this business because we want to see and experience different things. Really ask yourself every single time you're doing anything, is that something that they will have seen before, experienced before? And if the answer is yes, don't do it.
And I like to say, this above all, to thine own self be true. Be you.
Also true.
People love you, man. I mean, we work with people. We are a people. So regardless of your work, like I said, as long as your work doesn't get in the way, they teach you. You have great guys like this who will teach you how to be an amazing, phenomenal creative. But people just want to be around cool people. People want to be around people that they love to hang out with, drink with, party with.
And we pay so badly.
And yes, you will be broke.
Getting paid
You will.
terrible.
I was a creative director, still making like 40 grand.
That much?
So if you're trying to go be rich and go to Paris,
All right, I got to close up, guys. So I just want you guys to thank our guests, Brandon, Giancarlo, and Matthew. And I'm Wells Davis.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you to a wonderful moderator.
And thank you guys so much. Did you guys enjoy that? I hope you learned a lot. What a great panel, right? Let's hear it for them again. Thank you, Wells. Did you guys want to say, I didn't know if they wanted to say anything about Notice 66, but we could say it another time. They've got another initiative. Just so you guys know, the mentoring sessions are setting up back here, and the portfolio reviews part 2 are setting up in the other room. So for those of you who didn't do it this morning, they're happening again now, all right? And then we're going to have a brand building session as well. So, and another portfolio build.